Hello. It's taken me forever to work this out. But we're here. And queer. So I've been playing Magic more than Yu-Gi-Oh! Recently. Also I'm gonna more do that because I could hear the echo otherwise. So I'm going to do a deck profile for Magic. First time ever, I know. But let's see how it goes, shall we? So the deck I've been playing, and I'm going to show the deck profile for, is the Celestial Toymaker. So he is a 2/4 with white, blue, black as the mana. That basically says anytime you would guess, your opponents would guess a card where in any way, shape or form, or to put cards or permanents into piles that turn. Doesn't matter whose turn it is. The Toymaker will then deal 2 damage for each thing that does that. And he himself, when he attacks, will make me look at the top 3 cards in my library, put a face down card and like 1 face down pile and 1 face up pile out of that, and they would have to pick between those piles, which will trigger his own ability to burn. So he has that going for him. So the way I'm going to do this deck profile is I'm going to go through, let me make sure I've got the piles done properly here. Yeah, so I'm going to go through the piles in the form of like what they do for the deck. So for example, what I'm about to show you is going to be my list of things that basically do what the commander wants, which is decisions, piles, guessing, blah blah blah. So the first one, because of the colours, is Brilliant Ultimatum. You have no reason not to run it. It's basically, hey, put the top 5 cards into a pile. Well, just look at the top 5 cards. Your opponents put them into 2 piles, and you cast one of the piles for free while the other pile goes to your graveyard. This also goes to your graveyard. So it's like the best version of what triggers off the Celestial Toymaker. We then have Death or Glory, which is I separate all creature cards in my graveyard into 2 separate face-up piles. My opponent chooses a pile. I get to revive all of them for free. Well, obviously, other than the mana cost. And the rest will be yeah, and it will just stay in the graveyard, I assume. Oh no, they get removed, so they will get exiled. So you really play that as more of a late game. Boneyard Party, so I am reading these myself because I am building a deck. As you can tell, some of these are black and white because they are proxies at the moment. So some of these cards I'm not 100% sure what they do myself, so I will be reading in the middle of the in the middle of the profile. Professional, I know. So exile top 5 cards, exile up to 5 target creature cards from graveyards in general, not mine, just, well, mine as well, but anybody's. An opponent will then separate those cards into 2 piles, put all cards from the pile of my choice onto the battlefield under my control, and the rest back into their graveyards. Which is called Boneyard Party. So basically I just go, hey, you've got a threat, you've got a threat, you've got a threat, all in your grave. I've got a couple of threats in my grave, so those are the 5 I pick. Make 2 piles, one of those piles I will just revive, and I now have those threats. Then we have Sphinx of Clear Skies. This one I do know because I've used it recently. Basically, when it deals damage, I will then look at the land types I have, which can be 3 at most, and I'll look at that many cards on top of my library equal to the amount of land types I have at the time, and then I will go, okay, bit like Toymaker, 1 face down pile, 1 face up pile. Is it? Or is it the other one? Yeah, no, the opponent separates the 3, sorry. So I reveal all 3, my opponent separates them into 2 piles, again I choose a pile, comes to my hand, the rest gets dealt with. This one doesn't really trigger Toymaker, but it's a very fun card in the deck nonetheless, is Tivit. So Tivit has the ability of when it comes out or attacks, it will make everybody make a choice of giving me a treasure or giving me a clue, and I get to vote twice. So I will say treasure, treasure, and then they can give me more treasure or they can give me clues for card draw. which is very nice. He's also a CDH commander for a reason. We then have Sphinx of Uthun, which is reveal the top 5 cards of my library when it enters the battlefield. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles and then put one into my hand, one in, and the other into my graveyard. Again, bear in mind, all of these are triggering the Toymaker when he comes out. And then we have Choice of Damnation, which is the first actually no, a lot of these were non-creatures, never mind. But this is a non-creature that says, it's a sorcery, target opponent chooses a number. I may have that opponent lose that many life, and if I don't, I make them sacrifice all but that many permanents. So if they've got a board of 10 and they declare the number 5, they either take 5 life or get rid of 5, go to 5 permanents left on board, which is kinda nice. And again, it is a choice of them picking the number, so that again should trigger Toymaker. Even if it doesn't, it's just kind of what the deck does. I like playing games. Then we have Unesh, Chryso Sphinx Sovereign, which will make all of my Sphinxes cost 2 less. So if you haven't noticed, there's a few Sphinxes already. And when this enters the or another Sphinx enters the battlefield under my control, I reveal the top 4 of my library. Opponent separates those into 2 piles. I put one into my hand and the other into my graveyard. So more doing that thing. Next we have Fortune's Favour, which is target opponent looks at the top 4 cards of your library and separates them into a face down and face up pile. Put one pile into my hand and the other into the graveyard for 4 mana as a, I think that's an instant, yep. So again, very good. First Universes Beyond card. Genuinely, none of these have been Universes Beyond yet. In a Universes Beyond Secret Lair deck, is Golem Scheming Guide. So when he attacks, I look at the top 2 cards of my library, put them back in any order, then choose land or non-land. An opponent has to guess if the top card is a land or non-land. So basically, if I say non-land, they have to say yes, that is correct, or no, that is not correct. And then I reveal that card, I have to, and if they guess right, I remove this from combat. Otherwise, I draw a card and Golem cannot be blocked, which is very nice for the deck. Next we have Extract Brain. I don't even need to read this, this is in another deck of mine. So it is an X spell, where my opponent reveals X cards from their hand, and I can cast one of those cards for free. Again, they choose X cards, so that again will trigger Toymaker himself, which is very funny. So I get your best card and I also get to burn you for 2. Fun deck. And then Make an Example. I think I've played this once, so I'm definitely checking this one out. So each opponent separates the creatures they control into 2 piles, so my opponent's not me. For each opponent, I choose one of their piles. They have to sacrifice all creatures in that pile. So if my opponent has like 3 threats, I can force them to lose at least 2 of those threats, because no matter how they pile it, they're going to have to put a threat with another threat, and it can help eliminate that very quickly, while again triggering Toymaker. We then have Liar's Pendulum, again, not even having to look at it because I've played this card so many times in this deck. 1 mana artifact, pay 2 mana into it. You basically say, hey, guess a card in my hand. I will say a card name if it's in my hand, and then if you guess that card there. Let me try this again. Words are not my friend today. So I say, hey, I have Solemn Simulacrum in hand. Then without revealing my hand, my opponent has to guess, yes, Solemn Simulacrum is in there, or no, it's not. Then, by my own choice, because a lot of people misread this, by my own choice, I can reveal the hand or not. If I choose to reveal the hand and the card is not there or is there, as in like the opposite of what the opponent chose, I get to draw a card. If I reveal it and they were correct in their guess, then I don't draw a card and it's pointless revealing my hand. There are times where my opponents have guessed wrong, but I've still kept my hand hidden because I have a few secret threats. But I just wanted the Liar's Pendulum to trigger my Celestial's Toymaker. The most disgusting card in this deck, Fight or Flight. So at the beginning of each opponent's combat phase, separate all creatures that players controls into 2 face-up piles. Only creatures in the pile of his or her choice may attack this turn. So they have 2 really good attackers. I just go, no. You choose one of those 2 attackers. Again, is a choice on each turn, triggering, because piles, it's so good. This deck is so fun. And as an avid Doctor Who fan as well, this is just beautiful. We have, obviously, Jace Architect of 4, because the +1 will do the pile thing. No, the -2 will do the pile thing. +1 helps protect me and my board. And the -8, if I ever get to it, which I never do, is also very useful, because your threat is now my threat. Toymaker's Trap. I mean, they literally built him around technically this in a sense. So yeah, of course this is going to trigger him. It's I choose a card at number at random between 1 and 5. So say 3. My opponents then have to choose a number. Bear in mind I don't reveal the number I've picked. And then if the number is the same as the one I've shown, then this goes away. But if it's not the same number, I deal damage equal to the number I've picked to their face, and then I draw a card. Very dumb card. Obviously, we're talking about piles. Fact or fiction? Of course, fact or fiction. I don't even need to explain what it does. It's fact or fiction. But for those who do are getting into Magic, fact or fiction is look at the top, reveal the top 5, and opponent separates them into piles. I pick 1 pile to add to my hand, the rest go to the graveyard. Basic, simple stuff. That's why a lot of these effects are called fact or fiction effects, is because of this one card. Then we have Atris, which is when it enters the battlefield, target opponent looks at the top 3 cards of my library and basically does what Toymaker does of setting 1 pile face down, 1 pile face up. I then pick a pile to add to my hand, rest go to graveyard. Once again, another just way of triggering him. We then have Sauron's Ransom. I'm not a Lord of the Rings guy. My boyfriend wants me to watch it when he comes over next week. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it, but hey ho. So I choose an opponent. They look at the top 4 cards of my library and separate them into a face down pile and a face up pile. I put 1 into my hand, 1 into my graveyard, and then the ring tempts me, which is a very funny mechanic. We then have Epiphany of the Drownyard. Once again, don't need to read it. Epiphany is, I look at the top X cards +1, because it is an X spell. I then have my opponents I then separate those into 2 piles. My opponent then chooses from the 2 piles. 1 goes to my hand, 1 goes to the graveyard. Yeah. Hostile Negotiations is I exile the top 3 cards of my library face down. I then exile the next top 3 in a separate pile. I then look at both piles, choose a pile to have face up. My opponents can then choose if I have the face down pile or the face up pile. We then have Sphinx Ambassador, our next Sphinx in the many, many library of Sphinxes. This might as well be a Sphinx dex. Sphinx Ambassador is the most disgusting of them all. If this is on board, I am a threat. Because if this deals damage to you, I look in your library, I pick out a creature card. You then have to tell me what this creature card is. If you guess wrong, I get it for free. If you don't get it wrong, then I think it goes back, or does it go exiled? No, it just stays exiled. Oh no, I search for it. So I grab out of the library, and then I say, this is the card. What card is it? If they say Blightsteel Colossus and it is one, it goes back into the deck, shuffle the deck. If they say this is Blightsteel Colossus, but it's actually Kozilek Butcher of Truth, I get a free Kozilek Butcher of Truth. It's such a dumb card. And it's a reusable effect, so all it has to do is connect every time. It's so dumb. And I will prove, and later on I'll show you there are ways for this to guarantee the connect, which is very funny. We then have Intrude on the Mind. I don't think I've even drawn this card yet in the week I've been playing this deck. So reveal the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. The opponent chooses one of those piles, put that pile into your hand and the other into my graveyard. Create a 0/0 Fopter artifact token with flying, then put a 1/1 counter on it for each card that was put into my graveyard. So I could have a 3/3 Fopter while drawing 2 cards basically and getting a Toymaker trigger. That's a win-win to me. And then probably the last of the Sphinxes is a Master of Predicaments. Master of Predicaments is a whenever this deals combat damage to a player, choose a card in my hand. That player guesses, again triggering Toymaker, whether the card's converted mana cost is greater than 4. If they guess wrong, I may cast it without paying its mana cost. Again, not revealing it until I cast it. And then the final card that will trigger Toymaker, and this is the funniest one in the entire deck just because of the like trying to figure the word. Basically the lore of Doctor Who. The 7th Doctor triggers Toymaker. Because you attack it with it, then your opponent guesses if a card that's in your hand is higher or is greater than the amount of artifacts you own. If its converted mana cost is higher and they choose it's higher, nothing happens. I make a clue. If they guess wrong, I cast it for free. And once again, that triggers Toymaker. The Doctor triggers Toymaker. I love that interaction so much. So these are all the cards that trigger Toymaker that are in the deck. It's a decent chunk. But now we're going into more fringe effects. So this set of effects is what I like to call the duplications. We have Quantum Misalignment, which will create a token copy that's non-legendary, and then it also has Rebound, which means I cast it for free on my next upkeep if I used it from my hand. Yay! We have a Renicus's Vial duplication, which just creates a non-legendary token. We have Auton Soldier, that it becomes a non-legendary copy of a creature on my board that has Myriad. So I make it a copy of my Celestial Toymaker. I now have 3 Celestial Toymaker triggers. I make it a copy of that Sphinx that goes through the libraries. I have 3 of those triggers. It is so dumb. Nano Gene Conversion, I can make all of the creatures into one creature, so it makes sense because the way Toymaker's stats is, no Toymaker can really kill another Toymaker unless you like put 2 in front of it. So yeah, it just means you're less likely to lose your Toymaker in like if someone's got a 1 creature, but that 1 creature's like a 5/5. And then we have a Spark Double, which will make another non-legendary copy of a creature. There's a few that you want, but 9 times out of 10 it's usually the Toymaker himself. Next we will go through what I like to call the "Did you like that ability? Let's do it again." And that will then go into a separate thing that I like to call "Who Needs Blocking?" So we have the doubling ability of Strionic Resonator, which you put 2 mana into it and copy a target triggered ability, which is both of Toymaker's abilities, so you can either make him do his thing again, or you could double the damage at the end step by making his end step trigger happen twice. We have Adric that does that, but is also a counter spell for an activated ability. We then have Delaney, which is the mix card that will inevitably become the middle child of those. So basically, he says, hey, creatures that have 2 power or less, when their trigger abilities happen, they trigger twice. So he does both of his abilities twice now. But then on top of that, any creature with a power greater than him cannot block. So my 2/4 cannot be blocked by creatures with 2 or 3 or more tough power. Very nice. So he goes then into the next one that does the unblockable, because these are the only copy ones. This is an unblockable. It gives all of my power 2 or lower Skulk, which is basically what he does. But then also has the added ability of if you attack me with a creature with 4 or more power, you lose 2 life, I gain 2 life. So it could be a net positive. We then have Reverse of Polarity, which is a counter spell, while also switching the power and toughness, while also being a unblockable maker. And the final unblockable maker, which in Commander is a very funny card, is Trailblazer Boots, because everybody has a dual land. Even the precons come with them. So yeah, you're very likely to have an unblockable. Next we have the 3-card reanimation package, because sometimes you just want to put him in the graveyard. Sometimes you want to put your Sphinx in the graveyard. So you'll have an Animate Dead, a Reanimate, and a Stitch Together. Animate Dead is an enchantment that stays on the creature, but then if this dies or this dies, the other one also dies. Reanimate is you take life equal to the converted mana cost of the thing you're reviving, but then this will go to grave and the creature will survive. And Stitch Together is you add it to hand, or if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard at the time, you just summon it. So it's a reanimation in that sense. So we have 3 reanimation in that area. Next we have the interaction. So these are all the cards that will either counter or destroy. So we have Counterspell. We have Permission Denied. The funniest counterspell I've ever read, and it's in Azorius. It's very good. It basically says, hey, counter a non-creature spell. But also, they cannot cast non-creature spells for the rest of this turn. So, are you a Niv Mizzet deck? Oh no. So good. And then we have the removal package of Anguished Unmaking. So they lose 3 life, but a creature will die. Well, I'll lose 3 life. We have Generous Gift, because who doesn't want an elephant? And then we also have the Swords and Path to Exile package of either you gain life equal to its power, or you get a land. But either way, it is removal for potential threats. This is a 2-card pile. They both do the same thing, but in different colours, and they stack. And that, of course, is Propaganda and Ghostly Prison. I had a game where I had both of these out, and the next card I'm going to show you, and it was a very quick game because of it. Because the next pile we're going through is the damage doublers of Bloodletter of Alcazar. I don't know its official name, it's hard to pronounce, but it basically says if opponent would lose life, they lose twice that much. And Wound Reflection, which basically does the same thing but on the end phase. I do want to put a Warlock class in here, but I do not have one. If I have one, it's also going into this deck. I'll probably, like, I don't know, cut like a, I don't know what I'd cut. Probably one of the fun cards, because I've got a few of those coming up. Next we have the obvious Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots package that you need obviously for the commander. So yeah, basic stuff. Then we go into the fun and silly and the kinda good. So we have Parallel Forts. Parallel Forts basically says, hey, search your library for 7 cards of your choice, put them into a separate deck over here that you shuffle. Whenever you draw, you can choose from your normal library or this random pile that you just made. And it's an enchantment, so if this leaves, then the other things are just permanently exiled. But if this stays out and you put some good cards underneath it, yeah, you're getting some good stuff from it. Next we have Protection Racket. Oh, I look at the top card. I'm about to draw on my upkeep, but I will, for each player, I'll reveal a card. You can choose to pay life equal to its CMC, or I add it to my hand. For each player, and then I'll draw my card. So if it's a 4-player game, I get 3 activations of this, which could either burn my opponents out really quickly, because this does, there are some higher CMCs, as you saw with like the Sphinxes and that, or I just get a load of advantage. It's a very good card. Exquisite Blood, I'm like burning people constantly. It makes sense that I want to gain life while I do it. I want to run Sanguine Blood just because I'm running Exquisite for the infinite combo, but hey ho. Spellbook, because it's a 0 mana, you have no hand size limit, which with all of the things that trigger Toymaker adding stuff to hand, you kind of need that. And then a personal favourite in this deck, Telepathy. You get to look at your opponent's hand the entire time you play while this is out. Doesn't seem like much, but it allows you to play around counter spells, removal. It allows you to have your opponents also see what they have, so they can do more threat assessment against the opponents. And like, so if they have a removal spell but they see the opponent has a Gishath in hand, they might save that removal spell for Gishath rather than Toymaker. Very funny. Next we're going to go into the artifacts that do stuff with mana, which there are a few. So we obviously have the Solemn Simulacrum, because obviously it searches the mana. We have the Soul Ring, obviously. We have the Arcane Signet, obviously. Thought Vessel, again, we really want to have no maximum hand size. Then we have the 3 talismans of the colour combination, which is Dominance, Progress, and Hierarchy. Just basic mana and additional stuff. And then we reach the last part. So, this is the land section. We have Obscura Storefront, which basically says, hey, as soon as this comes out, sack it for one of the 3 lands that you have in this deck, basics, and gain a life. So it's basically a way of gaining life if you have no turn 1 plays that, you know, it's fun. And then another utility land, so we're going through utility lands first, is Maze of If. So Toymaker triggers on attack, not combat. So if I swing with him, I trigger him, and then I Maze of If him out of combat, he doesn't get destroyed by combat. So I get the trigger without the threat. And on top of that, this Maze of If can get rid of like an annoying thing swinging at you, so it's always good to draw anyway. Next we have the Access Tunnel and the Rogue's Passage for the unblockables, because Access Tunnel can make the commander unblockable because it is free power or less, but we are also running the Rogue's Passage for an additional way of doing that, but also a way of doing it with, say, the Sphinxes and whatnot. Next, for the utility lands, we have Reliquary Tower. Again, don't want maximum hand size. Mystic Sanctuary, because a lot of the things that we were doing with the triggering Toymaker was sorceries and instants, so having the access of re-getting them back is nice. And the final utility is Baaaaack Bog, because don't you just love exiling graveyards if your opponent's playing zombies? I know I do. Next we just go through the non-basics that are just mana, so we've got Arcane Sanctum, Exotic Orchard, Command Tower, Isolated Chapel, Deserted Beach, Sunken Hollow, Prairie Stream, Glacial Fortress, and Drowned Catacombs. Again, just for the mana colours, and they are the non-basics of the deck. And then we go into the basics, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 islands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 swamp. And then that's it. That is the entire deck. It is arguably the most fun I've had playing Magic in the past year. I play some degenerate decks, some of which I will be doing deck profiles on now that I've finally got this fucking thing working. But it's definitely been the most fun I've had with Magic for a while, because just having the Toymaker be one of the funniest things that I've ever played, in just how the deck plays, while also being a Doctor Who deck, while also being a Secret Lair Doctor Who deck, while also being one of my favourite characters in the previous just history of Doctor Who, just means it just fitted me so perfectly, and I love this deck so goddamn much. There are proxies. I'm hoping to bring it to Comic-Con with me. I'm hoping the rest of the cards arrive before then and I don't have to proxy anything, but if it ends up that I have to proxy, I don't think that'll be that big of an issue anyway. But that being said, thank you for watching. More Magic deck profiles, more Yu-Gi-Oh deck profiles, because I'm starting to get back into Yu-Gi-Oh a bit, and maybe some gameplay. Might do some dueling book, might do some spell table if people are willing to play spell table, but that'll probably be more of a live stream thing than a video. Yeah, I'm hoping to make some mild content. Might do a vloggy thing, because I've got, as I said, my partner's coming down next week, so I might do a little vloggy thing with that if he's up to it. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy, and enjoy making your opponents want to cry. I know I did. Ta-ta for now.